know from Ireland that sharing personal stories can change perception and public policy. Joining us today is Dr. Jody Glass. She's here to share her mother's story and her own personal story.
Thank you. For anyone who knows me, you might know that I usually don't read from something, but I'm going to today. But first, I just want to say that I always thank those who came before me. And yes, Marianne will always be 10 years older than me, so thanks, Marianne. She also helped me do everything that I've always done, so thank you for that. I need to say something that I don't have written, is that I'm really mindful of the very few, actually no women of color who are having voice here today. So I need to state that because that needs to be stated, especially when I speak from a voice of privilege. Yes, I need to say that. I also need to say from my activist voice of all the different things that I've done, I've come to, at 65 now, feel and know in my soul that this issue is one, for me, that I believe is our last bastion of strength. That until we have firm hold on choice, that's it. This is where our power lies, for me. That's my firm belief. So I'm going to read now so that I stop talking at a certain point, and also because it involves my mom and dad. And no matter how strong I get, that's my tender spot. So many years ago, I think it was 1983, I don't know if Marianne is still around here, but when we were here to fight this same fight to secure Roe v. Wade, volunteering for 2-to-1, Coalition to Preserve Choice, to escort terrified women to receive health care, which continues, I remember telling my folks I was going to testify before the House and Senate. I was a lot younger then. My dad asked if I would read on behalf of him and my mom. We were New Yorkers. We are New Yorkers. I moved here in 1978 for my first big job, which kept me in Rhode Island all these years. You see, they were a team, my mom and dad. They fell for each other at the ages of 15 and 17, and were married for 67 years until they passed a year and 3 days apart 6 years ago, which is why my dad's testimony was called Our Abortion. It was 1967 in the suburbs of Long Island, New York, with privilege, safety, education. My parents were extremely responsible people. I was 14, my brothers were 16 and 19. At the ages of 40 and 42, my folks were shocked to learn they were pregnant. They were finished raising young children. They used protection, birth control. They worked hard for everything in their lives, to buy a home, to send us to schools, camps, classes. They were faced with, to them, was a horrifying situation. They ended up in Mexico, where my mom underwent a procedure without anesthesia, with my dad outside the room, hearing her cries, with no way to help. When they returned, it took years and many doctor visits for damage done to her bladder to be repaired. Fast forward 11 years. Roe is now passed. My favorite cousin is 18 years old, has her first sexual experience, and unfortunately becomes pregnant. I remember feeling if only it could have been me. I was older, in a committed relationship, and could have dealt with the situation with more ease. Sure enough, 3 weeks later, I learned I was pregnant. I was to start that first big job in Rhode Island just 3 weeks later. My partner and I had been together for 6 years, used protection always. We knew exactly where we stood on choice and every other feminist issue. And it is a good thing we did, because I don't care what any anti-choice person says, ending pregnancy is never an easy choice. I called my mom and dad to tell them. My mom was so sad I was in this situation, offering what support she could, telling me she was on the next plane. My dad, while trying to share support, was also clear on letting me know there were alternatives. If I needed money or any other help, they'd always be there. After all, he was already excited, thinking of a grandchild from me. I was his baby. I remained his baby until the moment he passed. That in itself, disappointing my dad, was enough to do me in. That comes from a radical lesbian feminist. But I knew in my heart and my soul what was right for me, and so did he. I was in California when this happened. My partner wasn't there yet. The clinic insisted on a group mini birth control session just prior to the procedure. This was so painful to me. I understood. Yet I also understood that this was important to happen for people. No men were sitting there in the group sharing responsibility or lending support. In came my dad, maybe not loving my choice, but living the morals he always taught, of a father's love, respecting voice, empathy, and a person's right to choose. That's